What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Redemption with Jaden. A few weeks ago, we debuted kind of the first mostly completed version of this deck, which is a Daniel Babylonian's Contender deck. One of the 3 new Contender decks that are kind of based on the set of Times to Come that just came out this past year at Nationals, just a few months ago now. And all 3 decks are now ready. I'm happy to announce that. It's already, they've been on Your Turn games for a few days now at least, but I've got them figured out, priced out, sent to Andy for his approval. He looked over things, make sure things were all cool, and they are now good to go. They're live on the website as the newest Contender decks available. And if you're not familiar with a Contender deck, they are budget-friendly decks, relatively speaking. They're somewhat, they're still competitive, so they don't shy away from having a few more expensive rares and probably no ultra rares, maybe a couple promos here and there, depending on kind of where they're priced. Most of them are a little bit higher than the threshold for Contender deck, so try to stay away from those. But overall, these decks are kind of around like 130 to maybe 150 dollars at like retail value, or like full price if you were just to buy all the singles by themselves. But Andy discounts them greatly and graciously on selling them as a Contender deck. And these would be good to go to just bring to a tournament and feel like you have a deck that can hold its own. But they also, as I'll show you a little bit later, have some cards recommended below them that you could buy separately that are going to be a little bit more expensive for the most part, or they just didn't quite fit with the deck as it is. Like, there are some cards where if I was going to build the deck in a kind of budget-free way, that I would include, and that would lead me to include a few other cards that aren't in here. So in those lists of cards, you can see some of the kind of more expensive cards that you would think, oh, should be in here, like this deck. Michael the Guardian, Ancient of Days, they're definitely going in this deck for sure. Some of the cards that you might also want to include, because you're including Ancient of Days or Michael the Guardian, so cards that maybe can get to Michael a little bit faster, or get to your dominance a little bit faster, things like that. Those are in that list as well, even if they are kind of budget friendly. So you do have to do a little bit of thinking as you're working on cards that you want to add, if you want to test them out. But anyway, I did a fairly comprehensive overview of this deck, and so, or like a few weeks ago in that video, kind of the intro to the Contender decks, how I was going to do them. So if you haven't watched that yet, you can go back and check out that video. In this one, I'm going to go over the other 2 decks. So let's head on over to Your Turn games. And first of all, before getting too far and getting into the Contender decks, I do want to talk about the Thanksgiving deal that is going on already. It's a little early, but Andy's getting started with the sale. And so the biggest sale of the year is going on right now. I'm just going to read the whole thing just so I don't miss any of the details for you guys. Of course, you can go follow the link in the description to go to yourturngames.biz and get this information for yourself. But the deal includes 20% off of singles. You can get a display box and get 5 booster packs of your choice for free. So a display box is 24 packs. 5 booster packs is roughly 20% of that. So you get an extra 20% of for your money there. So it's kind of like 20% off, I guess. But anyway, 15% off of playmats, 10% off of mystery packs, challenger decks, Contender decks, power packs, grab bags, sets, starter decks, sleeves, and clearance items. So pretty much everything, like almost everything on the website, is discounted right now. And the sale ends Monday, November 24th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure that if you are planning to put in your order, you get it in before then. That is before Thanksgiving, so you can't wait until Thanksgiving, Black Friday, whatever. He's kind of preempting whole Black Friday sales where you're going to want to try to, spend your money on a TV or what have you. But now you can go to Your Turn Games. It's a great time to give them some of your money. Maybe pick up the last. I think he said like 15 mystery packs left or 16, something like that. So they're 10% off right now. So you saw, if you watched last week's video, you can see what I opened in mine. You can see that there were definitely you got your money's worth and much more, or I got my money's worth and much more from buying these, and you can expect to have similar results from these mystery packs. And then also just note that you don't need any discount codes. The discounts are automatically applied in the cart. And if you get a display box, then you'll get an email asking which 5 packs you'd like. So I think you just order the display box, and then before shipping it out, Andy will get in touch with you to ask which booster packs you would like. Of course, they do have to be in stock, so you have to, if you are looking for Cloud of Witnesses or ROJ. I guess I don't know if those are in stock right now. You can go ahead and check. And here, yeah, it looks like ROJ is out of stock, but Early Church, Persecuted Church. But you probably don't want those anyway. You can, get Times to Come, maybe open a foil or something. But anyway, that is the deal that is going on right now at Your Turn Games. So head on over there to take advantage of that. Maybe you can do some early Christmas shopping, or maybe on-time Christmas shopping if you're one of those people that starts doing their Christmas shopping this time of year. I don't know. I usually wait until like a week before Christmas, but maybe just maybe I'll have to take advantage of this and do it a little early, go out of my routine. But all right, now if you go over to pre-built decks, and then the second one down here is Contender decks. Challenger decks are like the kind of super budget friendly. Like there are very few rares in the decks, but I mean they're legal decks, ready to play, and good to go. Still like thematically synchronized, and can be a good place to start if you're wanting to just kind of start from something a little bit beyond starter decks, and then kind of build up from there. But Contender decks are going to be kind of the level above that. So you can see that they are in that, all three of the new ones are in that 125 to 129.50 is the range of where those are at retail value, and they are discounted. I want to say like 15% or something like that. Yeah, you can see 105 for the Daniel Heroes Babylonians one is the one I was just showing you. The other ones we're going to be looking at are the Isaiah Heroes and Greeks, and then Prophets and Persians. And you can see that the rest of the Contender decks, they fluctuate a little bit of like where they started versus where they are now price wise. So some of these might go up at some point once these cards start becoming a little bit more difficult to get. As you can see, some of the older ones, like the Jerusalem Heroes and Pharisees one is up to 165 right now. 129 for the Nativity Heroes and Herods. So, the decks, or the costs of cards will definitely fluctuate, and so you probably want to take advantage of these now while they're here. If you don't have the cards and you want to get started with that, but if you do have the cards and you just want to build them, from the lists here, you can see that the lists are available for what's all in the deck. You don't just have to come back to my video and write everything down. So this is the listing for the Daniel Heroes Babylonians one. Got a link to the online local that I used, or that I used this deck in and recorded it. It was it live streamed? Or yeah, I think it was live streamed. Yeah, live online local. I used this for 3 rounds in that tournament. Actually won the tournament with the deck. Of course, that was with the budget-free version of the deck, so a little asterisk there, I guess. It's not the not the version with New Jerusalem. It had Ancient Days, it had Michael the Guardian, and a few other kind of non-budget friendly cards, but it was pretty much the same concept, and can kind of show you what I would do if you were to, or what you can do to upgrade this deck. All right, so now let's go back. We're going to be looking at the other ones here. So you can see it's Isaiah Heroes and Greeks, and then Prophets and Persians. Just kind of giving you an idea of what these look like here, but I'll actually go to Lackey and show you what the decks are over here. So let's go back to Lackey. And, sorry I didn't lay out the decks like I normally do, in the columns and everything. I could have used Tim's deck builder tool to do that. That's actually a good thought to try that out, and I could have showed them that way, but here we are. These are budget-friendly decks, and so you get the budget version of the the deck layout. Sorry, bad joke. But anyway, this is the Prophets and Persians deck, which I guess is coming before the Isaiah Greeks one that we were just looking at, because that's the one I pulled up. This deck, all of the decks were kind of built around the dual alignment enhancement that was in the set. So the themes were kind of built around that. And so Perfidy here is the green and brown enhancement. It says reveal a hand. You may reserve an enhancement if 4 or more brigades are revealed to repeat 1 time. So this meant I needed Persians because that's the brown defense, and then Prophets. But Prophets and Angels kind of just blend together in this set. So you're actually going to see Prophets and Angels in both decks. And but the Prophets in this one are kind of more focused around Ezekiel and some of the Zechariah heroes, and then the Prophets in the other one are pretty much just going to be the Isaiah, like humans and angels there. So this one based on Perfidy, which is kind of a hand control card, and so we're going to be seeing a lot of hand control elements in this deck. If you're the kind of person who wants to play with like perfect information, just always knowing what your opponent has and what you need to play around, and you have a mind to keep track of those things well, then this would be the deck for you. It takes a lot of practice, I think, or a lot of experience playing the game. Like I really like this kind of deck, but that's in part because I've been playing the game for so long that I get familiar with the cards pretty quickly, and it's easier for me to keep track of what my opponent has, what they can do. So that's just something that will, be a little bit of a learning curve. So I don't want you to take this deck and immediately just expect, big results from it. But it's definitely one that you can, if you learn it well, you learn the card pool well, or kind of at least what your opponents are playing well, then you are going to be able to do well with this deck, I think. So I did use this in a local tournament, or kind of, again, use the budget-free version of this deck in a local tournament with our Minnesota play group here. And actually the budget free version of this deck isn't that much different from this version in front of you. There aren't a lot of like ultra rares and promos and stuff. Like the main 2 cards I think that come to mind are the Watchman promo, which is really good because it gives you a little extra speed, a little like drawing with Ezekiel. So that would of course just replace the Watchman roots here, and then Haman is kind of the other big one. But you can get I think the old like 2018 state promo Haman is like $18 or something like that, but you can get the fundraiser version of Haman for a little bit cheaper if you include the fact that you're getting a couple of other cards with him. So it's that would be my recommendation, I guess, if you're looking to pick up a Haman and you don't have one, and you want to add him to this deck. He kind of just slots right in. You don't really need to add anything else for him, though you definitely could add an Honor Thy Enemy, Haman's Boasting, those kind of cards. But Haman's Plot is still in here because it's quite good. And the Guard at the Den can still make Haman's Plot CBN, so there are ways to do it even without Haman himself in here. And that might be the swap in here if you just want to swap cards out 1 for 1, like Haman for Guard at the Den, and the Watchman for the Watchman. And then of course Second Coming in for New Jerusalem, and 3 Woes. Like those are kind of the other, like the kind of the staple non-budget friendly cards, but they're a little bit better with the fundraiser going on right now, and you can get each of them for $25, something like that. And then the other cards are just the Lost Souls, but a lot of the ones that are in this deck are actually pretty decent. It's really just a matter of you not necessarily needing the same effect so many times. So you could replace Open Hand and Displeased because you have Behold, and then maybe a Hunter comes in so that you can get to Behold when you need to, but otherwise, you can go to a different Lost Soul if you don't need it. But in here, you've got Displeased, Open Hand, and Behold, which all kind of have the same game plan of looking at your opponent's hand. If you do get two of them at the same time, at least Displeased and Behold have the flexibility to also look at your opponent's reserve. But ideally, these will just be coming out. You'll at least get one of them early on before your opponent even has hand protection, so that you can start keeping track of what they have in their hand. And then a lot of it is just going to be determining, okay, when do I play my hand control cards, because I know what they have in their hand. If you look at their hand, with Behold, and in the first turn they don't have any evil characters, then you don't have to bother playing the first sacrifice before you attack. You can save the first sacrifice for next turn when maybe they have an evil character, if they drew one or not. You can maybe bounce it with 20 shekels, put it back in their hand, and then underdeck it with first sacrifice or something like that. So it's a lot of it is just going to be knowing what they have, so that I know, okay, is Enjoy Their Hands going to be good? Is it actually going to win me the battle here? Or is it just, am I better off playing Retribution for Sin and trying to get a little bit of value for myself? Should I play Perfidy now because they have 4 more brigades, or do they only have 2 brigades, and I wouldn't get as much value from it as if I were to wait and play it a little bit later? Should I attack with Surveying Spirit? How many do I have to put a Malachite Slave down before I attack with Surveying Spirit? Do I need to discard Confusion so that my Surveying Spirit will work next turn? Things like that that are going to be some options that you have to work out as you play the deck, and as you figure out kind of the how things work together well, and what cards you need to worry about, what cards you can just leave in your opponent's hand and not really care as much about. So that is the gist of this deck. You can do a sequence where you get a lot of your heroes in battle. You can kind of join the Ezra not Ezra, Ezekiel and Zechariah elements of the offense together through cards like, I guess the whole sequence would be like doing Watchman to Ezekiel, banning to this cherubim, the what do we call this one? The Stars or something, or Artist Unknown, I think, because the other one is by William Blake, I think. I don't know. You can go to this cherubim, who can ban to an Ezekiel hero, ban to this cherubim, the Legacy Rare cherubim, who can ban to a green prophet, and then you can ban to Haggai, who can then ban to an Ezra, Haggai, or Zechariah hero. So then Haggai can ban to Relayer of Messages if you need to. Relayer of Messages can ban to Patrollers of the Earth, and then you can edit there and draw some cards, or you can ban a Surveying Spirit and do some hand manipulation. You can do Defender of the Saints and go to Reserve for Zechariah in here, and then Zechariah can ban to one of the angels that you need. So there's lots of banding that you can do with Here's an Honor Thy Enemy that would work with Haman. You might just want to switch that into the main deck if you do get a Haman, because there's no Zeresh who lets him take it from reserve. So that is kind of the game plan for the offense here, is that you can get a lot of value, put a lot of heroes in battle, and then bring in a Zechariah who can protect heroes from harm, which is better if you have more heroes in battle, more numbers. The one thing you do have to kind of just keep note of is that this offense isn't really, like, you can have a lot of heroes in battle and not have very big numbers. Like, the cherubims are both 4s, which is decent. Ezekiel's a 5, but like Haggai is a 2, Surveying Spirit's a 1, and like when I say 4s are decent, I mean like it's not, it's maybe a little below average still. Relayer of Messages is nice to get in there. Like most of the time he's probably just going to go in there if you need more numbers, and then Zechariah makes him protected. But like Patrollers of the Earth it's the most attack that you have on any of your heroes. I guess Amos as well, but you're trying to ban him in not, or like later after they block, not necessarily before with the protected stuff. So yeah, Patrollers is kind of the biggest, the beefiest here. Zechariah is what, 4/9. So yeah, if your opponent has a like 3 character band that they average toughness of 8 or so. Like you might not be able to beat them by the numbers. They're like just rely on numbers, so you do have to be able to play around that somewhat. You don't have a whole lot of cards that actually remove evil characters, and so you do have to kind of be cognizant of that, of like, okay, do I play my Retribution for Sin here, or do I save it for later when they might have a band that's I need to deal with one or more of their characters or something like that. So that's just something to keep in mind. We also, speaking of dual alignment cards, Perfidy works well on both offense and defense. So does Six Bowl of Wrath. You can use the evil side to add Cyrus the Great or Ahasuerus the Father, or the guy in reserve. Is that Xerxes? Yeah, Xerxes in reserve. And you can have that little add to battle there, which is pretty nice. Or you can do like a small attack with Surveying Spirit. You deal with something in their hand, and then you get initiative. You play Six Bowl of Wrath to deal with something else in their hand. Maybe you do Haggai to Surveying Spirit so that you can, still, you're 312 with these 2 heroes, and then that way you can play Six Bowl of Wrath, get rid of 2 more evil cards from the hand, and then still have access to your green cards. So that is the gist of the deck. I did do a video actually with this deck, or kind of the budget-free version of this deck a few weeks ago, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on the rest of it. I think the video is called like Silver Camo Control or something like that, where you've got silver, but then you got the green and brown kind of a camouflage, and then some control elements where you're not only going to be dealing with their hand, but if they think that, oh, I need to put stuff in my territory because my hand isn't safe, then you have elements to take apart their territory as well, and 20 shekels can help with that. But then Amos can hit stuff in their territory, and then of course Haman's Plot can take out their evil characters as well. And then Judge's Seat is the other one that is going to be pretty good territory disruption, because you are using Persians, which means that you do get to use Haggai to get your Judge's Seat back every turn and keep on blowing stuff up. So that is this deck. And then the one that has not been on the channel yet in pretty much any form is the Isaiah Greeks one. And I'm actually kind of excited about this one just because of like how cool some of the synergies are, like just how things came together. You can see that there are some clay heroes in here that might take a little bit of explanation. So this one is kind of I want to test it at some point to kind of see how competitive it actually is. It might be on the lower end relative to the other 2 contender decks, but I think it'll definitely be more fun. I think it'll be kind of the, if you're looking to have a little bit more fun in your gameplay, I think this deck will be right up your alley. So mostly it's Isaiah heroes. We got Isaiah, son of Amos, is the new version of Isaiah from times to come. We also got a new version of Seraph, old school Seraph with a live coal, or I guess by old school I mean like the one from Roots, but it's kind of similar to the old school one. And then the Angel of His Presence is the other new Isaiah hero that is actually quite good. Good enhancement is in battle. You protect Isaiah heroes from harm, and this is territory class, so it works even if Angel of His Presence is not in battle. So that means that your opponent can't just block you with Christian Martyr or like a small evil character that gets initiative and then play a battle winner. They actually need to be a little bit bigger and then make you play something, or they need something that's regardless of protect in order to get around or I guess something that negates Angel of His Presence in territory before targeting your Isaiah heroes in battle. And if you have, say, Seraph of the Live Coal, Seraph, the Prophetess, and Isaiah in battle, then your numbers can be pretty decent. And then Angel of His Presence is going to be protecting all of those heroes from harm. So that seems pretty good. Then you can also get the bonus of attack. If attacking, you can look at the top 7 and take up to 1 good card. So Why is there clay stuff in here? That the offense and defense in this deck actually work together more than you might think, just from a kind of uh, a general, or like typically what you would see in a deck. So Abomination of Desolation is a card that is based off the original one, which worked really well with the like New Testament Gold offense as it was, where you actually forced your opponent to draw cards. A lot of times A-Bomb in this version of A-Bomb at least is used just for that first ability to reserve this card to discard a hero, and you definitely can use it that way in this deck. There are ways to recycle it and get it back. Forces Arise is kind of the main one, but there are other ways to get it back out of reserve after you've put it there. But this deck is kind of built for the second ability, that while you control an evil Greek, if an opponent draws because of an ability, discard a card in their territory. So with this deck, you're gonna be trying to trigger that as often as possible. A lot of times it's just a counter for stopping your opponent from doing their own drawing, but the way that this card is worded is that it's if they draw because of an ability, so not just their ability, but if they draw because of something that you play, then you also get to discard something in their territory. So that means that cards like Kindness, which says that each upkeep you choose an evil brigade and each player must draw one, then the hero is protected from the chosen brigade, but that part we don't care as much about. But mostly it's the each player draws one in the upkeep. Titus says each player must draw one. The Rejoice Lost Soul says when this Lost Soul is rescued, each player must draw one. Areopagus, or Areopagus, however you want to say it, says during your upkeep, if you control a New Testament Greek evil character, each player must draw one. Notably, there are no New Testament Greek evil characters in the main deck, so you do have to get the Alexander of Troas out of reserve if you want that to work, or you need to upgrade the deck and grab a Priest of Zeus, which is a little bit more expensive these days, so it didn't quite fit the budget for this deck, but would definitely be one of the first additions to this deck if you're trying to upgrade it with other non-budget friendly cards. So yeah, Areopagus is another way to get your opponent to draw one. So feasibly, you could trigger Abomination of Desolation 4 times in a turn. I guess Rejoice would be on your opponent's turn, but Kindness and Areopagus in your upkeep, Titus in the battle phase. You can also do Forces Arise, of course, and you could get this 4 times on your turn, and then maybe your opponent does a draw or 2 on their turn, and then maybe you can force them to draw a card or 2 on during the block. With Alexander the Great is one way to do that. 1290 Days is another way. Let's see, Antiochus's Army. Yep, that one. I think that's it for the evil characters. But yeah, so there are definitely ways to get your opponent to draw, even if they're not doing much drawing themselves, which if that's the case, then that's actually pretty good for you. That's kind of what you want. One thing to note about Antiochus's Army is that there are, I think, 2 good Greeks in the card pool, in the rotation card pool. And this guy has Unity Greeks Evil, which you might think of like, oh, all of your evil characters have to be Greek. No, actually, it's all of your Greeks have to be evil, which is a little bit different from what has been on a lot of cards, and so that's kind of why you might read it and kind of assume the opposite. But the way that Unity is structured, it's like all of your this have to match what's in parentheses, so all of your Greeks have to be evil. And in this case, we do have Titus in here, one of the 2 good Greeks, and so you do have to be careful if you want to use Antiochus's Army to make sure that Titus doesn't stick around, or you shuffle him with Shrine to Artemis, or something like that. You get rid of him in some way if you don't want him to be around because your Antiochus's Army needs to work. Antiochus's Army, the ability is better on like turn 1, so as early as possible. Later in the game it might not be as good, and so you might just not want to have him down. But I guess just don't put your Titus down carelessly if you if you don't need to. All right, so the other clay that we have in here, we have Ethiopian Treasurer, who, despite what it might look like, can actually use more enhancements in this deck than any of the other heroes, even Philip's Daughters, I believe, because he can use Isaiah enhancements, which means regardless of brigade, so he can use Delivered from Distress, Behold the Lord, Live Coal, the Former Forgotten, and then all the clay ones as well. And so that's what, 7 of the 9 possible good enhancements in here. Oh, actually God's Judgment as well. So 8 of the like 10 possibilities in the main deck, and I think a couple in reserve as well. You can also ban to a Meek hero, of which there are none in this deck, but maybe your opponent has some that you can borrow and bring them in. And his ability cannot be negated, so it's actually pretty solid. And this deck wants to have at least a few clay heroes, or kind of a requisite number of clay heroes in order to make kindness actually work, because you have to place it on a clay or gold hero. And so placing it on Ethiopian Treasurer, it's actually pretty decent. You can get that protection and then play most of your enhancements. And then Philip's Daughters, I guess similar to Titus, you reveal an underdeck 4 random cards from your opponent's hand, and then opponent must draw an equal number of cards. So that's another way to trigger a bomb on their turn. Get them to put stuff in their territory so that you can start blowing it up. And then Philip's Daughters is actually kind of a way to punish them for keeping stuff in their hand, because there's a chance that it would get underdecked at random. That's always good. And then Philip's Daughters is also green, so you can use a good number of the enhancements here. How is this offense actually winning battles, you might ask? A lot of it is going to be through banding in Amos, through various different means. So we've got Faith of Samuel that can band in Amos. We've got Entertaining Angels, which can band to any number of Silver Brigade heroes, which can bring in Seraph, who can band to Amos, or Victorious Being, who can exchange to Amos. And then you also have both of these, Delivered from Distress. You can play an OT hero from deck and then ban to an OT hero, so you can play and ban to Amos. Return to Fight can ban to an OT character or match in Brigade from deck or reserve, so again, Seraph or Victorious Being, both of them have ways to get to Amos. Shuffle your opponent's evil character. You can shuffle your own thing as well, and you can just shuffle like one of your Greeks. You can shuffle your Antiochus's army if you've got Titus out and you're not going to want him. But pretty much whatever you shuffle, you can just, if you shuffle one of your evil characters, you can just replace it with something else, maybe a good card. You shuffle your Titus to go get your Antiochus's army back with Shrine to Artemis. And don't forget that you have Areopagus to hold another idol. So Asher Pole, Shrine to Artemis, A-Bomb, all of these can go into Areopagus so that you have 2 idols active at the same time, or at least 2 artifacts active at the same time. Another thing to remember for a Greek's defense, if you're running the Realm of Greece, this can actually be a little bit of a liability with the protectability. It can be very good because it's protection that's outside of battle, so Interrupt the Battle does not work against the protectability on the Realm of Greece. However, it also means that your opponent can attack with a band and pretty much guarantee that they get initiative against your Greeks, because as soon as you block and you're protected, then it's going to be stalemate. You presented the last character, so your opponent's going to have initiative. So if you're trying to block low, then you're not going to be able to get initiative there to play something like Smash Opponent on your Goat with Horn. They can just do a big band and then not have to worry about giving you initiative, because you're going to be protected. So maybe that's a good target to be shuffled with Amos or Shrine to Artemis if you suspect that your opponent's going to be able to do that or to take advantage of that. You can also discard it with Antiochus if you're really desperate. And then you also have options to use Cassander, that's the one, to choose a hero to attack if blocking alone. So if they come out with a band, so they have more than 2 heroes in battle, you can use Cassander to make it so that they only have 1 hero in battle. You just have to choose it to attack. I thought it would be kind of an interesting synergy also with Lost Boy. It's probably not going to come up, but so a lot of the kind of the idea with the Lost Souls in this deck is a lot of them are protected from rescue except by a certain type of hero, which means that you can sort of limit your opponent's options, and it also allows you to prioritize, like, okay, like which heroes should I discard with A-Bomb. It's probably not going to work super well because you still have Idolaters, you still have Rejoice that your opponent can rescue pretty much no matter what, but the rest of the Lost Souls all have certain conditions. There are a lot of meek heroes, though. There are a lot of prophets, lots of heroes with strength 6 or less, so it's going to be tough for you to protect all of your Lost Souls from any particular one of your opponent's heroes, but that's kind of the overall idea. And then Lost Boy was one that actually kind of works out well with Realm of Greece, where you can protect her from rescue except by a lone hero. So basically, if they banned, then they're kind of in trouble either way, either from Lost Boy or from Realm of Greece. But it just means that they won't necessarily be able to abuse the Realm of Greece protection for getting initiative. So they're going to have to go with a lone hero to get initiative anyway, I guess. And yeah. All right. That is really all I was really thinking needed to be talked about with this deck. I kind of went over how the offense works and what the idea is, but basically it's just get your opponent to draw cards and then pick off their territory. Isaiah is great with picking off territory, so is Amos. So you're doing a lot of discarding, a lot of shuffling. Put shuffle cards back into your opponent's deck so that they can draw them again. You may have noticed that there are only 2 evil enhancements in the main deck. I guess not including the dual alignment and the curse. So I guess technically that's dual alignment, evil and neutral. But anyway, we have Return to Curse, Return to Fight, and Fifth Bowl of Wrath, which can all be used with your defense as well. So it's kind of a sneaky 5 evil enhancements, not just 2, but then we've got a bunch of evil stuff in the reserve here as well. The other Seraph, which you can use because it's different art and generic. And then also Joel was kind of an I don't know, sort of later on addition of just having another hero option that's good, but then also kind of a dual-sided hero in that you can have him take out another one of your opponent's evil characters, like something that you shuffle, or I don't know. It's just more territory disruption, so he just kind of fit well with the theme. I don't have like a super big justification for him, but you can get him out of your reserve with the Prophetess pretty easily, and then also Return to Fight. Actually, probably not, because it has to be Match and Brigade, so we don't have any silver and green heroes, so never mind on that. But yeah, there might be a better spot or a better inclusion, better slot for Joel there, but I just wanted to have another green hero in the reserve, just another hero in general. And Joel just seemed like he fit well. He's another card in the new set, and he didn't make it into either of the other decks. So, he just needed to be included somewhere. All right, that is the majority of everything I wanted to cover, I believe. So I'm pretty excited about these new Contender decks. I think they came together pretty well. They took a little bit of time to really get going, and especially this one, because I was trying to figure out, like, okay, how am I gonna make Isaiah work with Greeks, but then like with Ethiopian Treasure and some of the clay stuff, I was like, oh, this actually fits together better than I expected, and so I thought this was a pretty cool deck. So again, maybe not the most competitive. I think it's a little easier for your opponent to disrupt than some of the other or I guess either of the other 2 Contender decks, either of the other 2 new ones. But I think you can have a lot of fun with it. One of the things to prioritize is getting rid of your opponent's deck protection, because if their deck is protected, then you won't be able to force them to draw cards. So fortunately, I mean, you have A-Bomb, which can discard a card in your opponent's territory, and so if if you do get to trigger it once somehow, or if they trigger it with their own draw ability, you can take out their protection, so that way you can do more of your own forced to draw stuff. And the defense is pretty good at actually getting rid of your opponent's territory or getting rid of their cards. But if you're finding that's a problem, then maybe you'll have to add some other cards here to help with that. So that, yeah, I think that's just about everything. So head on over to Your Turn Games, and you can check out the new Contender decks. Even if you're not really looking to buy them, like I said, you can still plan to like build them with your own cards, your own collection. If you already have all or most of the cards, and they can be used for helping out newer players and teaching the game, or like if you have if you just have extra cards and you can build one of these from your extra cards, then you can loan somebody a deck to play in a tournament or something like that. There may even be some Contender deck online tournaments that happen at some point. I know Derek was doing those at one point, and he talked about bringing them back, so that could be a thing. So if you find one of these that you think looks interesting, that you want to build and be able to play in that, then you can do that, have that ready. But yeah, I think that's all we're gonna cover in today's video. Head on over to Your Turn Games, take advantage of the Thanksgiving early sale, and check out the Contender decks. All right, everybody. We'll see y'all next time.